Hello and welcome to Gardening and Allotment Tips, hosted by Gardening with Ben. If you've not checked out my main podcast channel, make sure you check that out, called Gardening with Ben. Search it in any podcast platform and you will be able to listen to my main episodes, which are in usual a bit longer than this. And my recent episode, I'm talking about all the jobs which need doing in the garden and the allotment in February, and what seeds can be sown in February as well. So make sure you go over and check out them podcasts as well. And if you've not subscribed to this channel, click that subscribe button so you get notified of new podcasts. So what are we going to be talking about today? So we're going to be talking about getting a polytunnel for the allotment. There's so many people out there that are either starting out in getting an allotment, or they have an allotment already and they're wanting more indoor space to be growing produce. And I had a greenhouse when I first started my allotment, and I ran out of space and I decided to invest in a polytunnel, and I had to do a lot of research into what polytunnel to purchase. And a polytunnel can sometimes be a lot better to grow produce in than a greenhouse, because the air seems to circulate around it better, and it gets to sometimes not as scorching temperatures as a greenhouse would. The glass can scorch a lot of plants, but polytunnels don't seem to scorch the plants as much as a greenhouse would do. So polytunnel is sometimes a lot better to grow tomatoes, cucumbers in, and you get a better produce from the plants. Now, another reason why you could be wanting to get a polytunnel is obviously, like I say, you want to grow more different varieties of produce. There's so many things that you can grow inside a polytunnel. Obviously, you can grow your tomatoes, you can grow your cucumbers, you can grow peppers, aubergines, even melons. You can even grow melons in a polytunnel. I've grown melons in my polytunnel before, and I had great success one year with them. I tried growing them in my greenhouse the year after, and they failed. So I'm going to be growing them again in my polytunnel this year. So stay tuned on my Instagram page, Gardening with Ben, for how they actually get on. So when you're wanting to purchase a polytunnel, it can be a big investment, as they do cost a lot of money, and some council sites you've got to get permission before you get a polytunnel, which you do on my site. And all I had to do was send a plan in of where I want my polytunnel on my plot, and they approve it or disapprove it. And all they said to me is that they wanted it in line with the other polytunnels on the site. So that is one thing that I made sure I definitely did. So what sort of polytunnel do you want? Well, there are many sites, many gardening sites where you can purchase a polytunnel. Now, the cheapest you can get can range from like £79 to £99, and these are thin tubes with, sometimes you usually see a green cover. Now, I would advise personally against them. I've seen so many disintegrate within a couple of years, rip in the first year from the wind. I've seen them blow away onto different plots when we get some bad wind, which we've certainly had plenty at the moment. And yes, I wholeheartedly disagree with these ones. The ones that I agree with having are the actual proper polytunnels, which are thick, very thick tubular frames, and they can range from a couple of £100, even more. And my polytunnel set me back about £500 in total. Yes, that is a lot of money for the polytunnel, but I have had it up 11 years now, and it's still got the same skin on it that it had originally. It has got a rip down the side of it where it's torn on the crease, but I just keep taping that back up and it keeps lasting another year, and it's doing absolutely fantastic. Now, polytunnel skins probably are guaranteed for about 5 to 6 years, so I've certainly had my money's worth out of there. Obviously the metal frame will never break, whereas some of these with the cheaper versions, they'll bend and they'll snap, and they're not made to be a proper polytunnel. So you want to look at, if it takes a few years to save up for these proper polytunnels, it is worth it, trust me so much, rather than these cheap plastic metal thin ones with the not a proper polytunnel cover on them. Now, the reason why I say a proper polytunnel cover is that when I was choosing my skin for my polytunnel, I either bought it from Northern Polytunnels or First Polytunnels, or Premier Polytunnels, one of them 3 big brands out there, and there's so many varieties of skins to choose from. Now, the plastic skins on them are made to let the sunlight in and the warmth not back out. They're specially developed to grow great produce in them, whereas these plastic green ones, they let the heat in and the heat comes straight back out again. They're not made to be a proper polytunnel, so I do advise against getting one of those. I cannot stress enough how much not to get one. And there's certain people say, well, I've had mine years and they've lasted years, but 9 out of 10 I see so many rip and get broken. But another thing is with a polytunnel is that you can keep growing all year round, and I mean that by you can grow stuff in it throughout winter and you will still be getting produce. You can grow winter lettuce inside there, spring onions in there, you can grow Christmas potatoes in there, and yeah, you can grow all sorts of stuff through there in the winter and get a great produce. So make sure you have a look around, save up more, and trust me, it is worth saving up more. And when the reason why you need these big ones as well is that the skins are usually bigger than the actual polytunnel, and the reason why is that you make it into a channel and you put bricks into the skin to weigh the skin down, and then you backfill it all with soil, whereas these cheaper ones, the skins are made just to cover the frame. So hence the reason why they always blow away, because they're not anchored enough into the ground. Unless you can screw down every single pole into concrete or something like that, trust me, it will blow away. So have a look around. Obviously now is a decent time to be getting polytunnels ready for growing tomatoes and cucumbers in there, ready for the year ahead, and it is a great investment. And one thing that I've done in my polytunnel is I have black membrane down on the floor, because I don't grow in there in the winter. I don't grow stuff in the winter myself personally. I have black membrane down, which will keep the weeds down totally, and I'll grow all my tomatoes and stuff in plastic buckets, so that I don't have to worry about a single weed growing in my polytunnel, and it's easier to wash down, clean down, and scrub at the end of winter to get rid of any diseases or anything that may be growing in there. And yeah, it's one of the best investments that I've ever purchased, and I'm so pleased that I purchased it now, and I've had so much fantastic produce from inside the polytunnel and the amount of produce that I've had off it. So if you're looking for a polytunnel, feel free to message me and get some advice or tips through Instagram. Just send me a message and I will gladly help if I can do. So until next time, if you've not subscribed to this channel, make sure you subscribe to stay up to date. Until next time, remember, keep gardening, keep smiling, and keep listening to Gardening with Ben's podcasts.